Hi everyone, Tracy DW here. On the 30th of June 2020, Juliana Lumumba wrote a letter directly to Phillippe King of the Belgians with a special request that the remains of her father be repatriated to his homeland so that he would no longer be, in her words, a hero without a grave. The word hero always conjures up feelings of deep devotion, gratitude and reverence. Feelings that would be felt by any child who idolised their parents. And for Juliana, this was no exception. However, this was one parent who is perceived as a hero, not just by her family, but also by her nation, the Democratic Republic of Congo, and now the entire world. How is this hero of the Congo remembered? His memory is full of contradictions, and because of this, his life followed a tragic arc. From humble beginnings, he rose to become the most prominent and foremost revolutionary of his era, gaining the heights of power as his country's first democratically elected Prime Minister, only to begin his fall from grace into accusations of being a communist, potential dictator, and traitor of his own people. He is also remembered for being an idealist, the first to introduce an anti-colonial narrative which appealed to and encompassed all ethnic tribes across the Congo, and the first who dared to dream of a truly Africanized government for his people, regaining the golden stool of humanity, dignity, fundamental human rights, social justice, and liberty. On the 30th of June 2020, Juliana Lumumba must have been well aware that the whole world was on lockdown due to the COVID pandemic. But 2020 also marked the 60th anniversary of her country's independence. Like any child mourning the loss of a parent and seeking compensation for that loss, she probably felt, and rightly so, that such a request was not only appropriate and justified, but also well overdue. When I heard about the repatriation of the remains of Patrice Lumumba to his native land, it brought to my mind my colleague and friend Christiane, as I knew she was Congolese. On having a conversation with her to gain a perspective about Patrice Lumumba, I explained that I had placed him on my Learning Journey webpage for my poetic narrative on the Scramble for Africa, Knights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference 1884, since the website's creation in 2020. This was because I felt intuitively that he was definitely someone of great importance. Christiane replied, Patrice Lumumba is to the Congolese what Martin Luther King is to the Black American. It was at that moment that I began to understand the magnitude of this hero without a grave, the reverence shown towards a man whose sudden rise and equally sudden demise represents so much unfulfilled potential and lost opportunity that it is not what was, but what could have been, that has caused him to transcend from hero status almost into mythology. A farmer's son born in Honolua in the Katakokomba region of the Kasai province of the Belgian Congo, Lumumba's family came from the Tetela ethnic group. His original name, Elias Okit Asombo, was said to be interpreted as a bewitched people who will die quickly. This could be interpreted as someone dying young or dying a quick death. In Lumumba's case, it was prophetic of both. When did his downfall begin? Was it in his failure to be able to contact and negotiate with the oppositional parties once he had gained victory in Congo's first democratic election in 1960? Was it when he thought he had formed a government, but was still bombarded with rejections, objections, and feelings of being excluded? Maybe it began on his return from a visit to the US and the decision installing his return to Congo by visiting other African countries. Did his delay create a vacuum in which those who resented his ascendancy to power exposed the tension and divisions that still festered among the populace? Or was it simply that someone with such high ideals didn't really have any practical and strategic approaches to implement it? Achieving independence is easy. Establishing unity is harder. Has been the narrative that underpins my learning journey about all former colonies on their freedom journey. Zimbabwe, Haiti, Kenya, and now the Congo. But regardless of these, he was an embodiment of the promise of a brighter future for his people and his country. Today's episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. Do you feel like you're stuck in a dinner rut? With HelloFresh, you get fresh pre-measured ingredients with mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Skip all those trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. You can now enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less. With over 25 recipes to choose from each week, there is something for everyone to enjoy. All recipes are designed and tested by professional chefs and nutritional experts to ensure deliciousness and simplicity. There's a selection for families, as well as quick and easy meals to suit a busy lifestyle. Or why not try our premium selection for those special occasions? Even if you're counting the calories, there's a selection of meat and vegetarian options to suit every taste, along with a great selection of desserts, sides, and wines. Just go to the link in our show notes to get 50% off your first box and then 35% off your next 3 boxes. That's the link in our show notes for 50% off your first box and then 35% off your next 3 boxes. It's HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit. They say, show me the child and I'll show you the man. And we saw the child, a precocious, articulate and highly vocal child, always challenging his teachers at school and pointing out their mistakes. His peers may have thought him foolish or admired his strength of character, but Lumumba was probably spurred on by 2 qualities that, according to the writer Mark Twain, was needed to be successful in life: confidence and ignorance. He was a child of the philosophies of Rousseau and Voltaire and inspired by the literary works of Molière and Victor Hugo. For the African man, living during the time of imperialism, despite having a great mind, there were limitations placed upon him in strategic ways. Working as a beer salesman and postal clerk in his youth was a reflection of the inequalities of the social structure which worked to keep him in check. However, this did nothing more than to make Patrice stand out even further, becoming co-founder of an alumni of schools that he never attended, joining the Liberal Party of Belgium in 1955 and in 1958. Co-founded his own movement, the Mouvement National Congolais. a truly cross-tribal and multi-ethnic party of which he quickly rose to become its leader. A popular, charismatic and influential figure, he was always able to put that childhood precocity and his oratory skills to good use, and after he spoke at the All African People's Conference in 1958, a certain man by the name of Kwame Nkrumah was more than impressed with him, and the feeling was mutual. Lumumba's natural inclination for critical thought, philosophy and poetry shone so brightly that this enabled him to transcend boundaries and speak to the hearts and minds of the Congolese. He understood all too well how powerful the writer's pen and the spoken word can be, showing complete synchronicity with the mood of the times. The time for nationalism, and he knew what made the African tick. Independence Day for the Democratic Republic of Congo was set for the 30th of June 1960. This was agreed at the Congolese Round Table Conference held in Belgium in January of that same year. Patrice was not only fortunate enough to have his 6-month prison sentence cut short, but he was also able to attend the conference. He shone once again when his party, the MNC, not only won the first democratic election in his country, but he was also asked by the Belgian government to form a national unity government in time for Congo's celebrations. Despite achieving a diverse unit of government, one could question whether this government would really be able to achieve what he had always hoped for: unity and loyalty amongst his people. But does diversity always bring about unity and loyalty? Such ideals will always appeal to the masses, but it may have been far too early on in the Congo's freedom journey to actually be achievable. Perhaps at that time, the unity that he needed most was from those whose idea of change could be reconciled with his own, and the loyalty that he needed most was loyalty to him from those who were less interested in furthering their own agenda. It's difficult to achieve a balance. 2 decades later, when it became the turn for Zimbabwe independence, Robert Mugabe placed all his hopes into a one-ethnic political party and surrounded himself with those who were loyal to him. And we all know the consequences of what happened next. Patrice shone once again when he gave his impromptu speech in response to King Baudouin's rhetoric on the future success of the Congo laying within Belgians' interests. The newly elected Prime Minister reminded the West monarch that independence may appear to be easily granted, but it is actually the result of struggle, hardship, and the deepest suffering. It is about the day-to-day fight for which our strength and blood put an end to the humiliating slavery which was imposed upon us by force. It was perhaps at this moment that the shine lost its hue, and the speech, although truthful, exposed a youthful naivety, perhaps a lack of diplomacy in recognizing that words cannot only bring people together, but can also be perceived as a threat to foreign interests. Maybe there's a reason why older people tend to occupy positions of political power. It's not because with age comes perfection, virtue, or even wisdom. It is because with age comes the experience of knowing when to hide or temper your own shine and traits in order to read and use the shine of others to your advantage or to their disadvantage. From childhood, What shone from Patrice Lumumba was the ability to rally the populace and inspire his peers with a vision for the future of the Congo. However, it was a shine which remained untempered, at times uncontrolled and underdeveloped. A shine that was unable to transform him from revolutionist into a political power. When he tried to step into power, did he break the first of its laws? The law to never outshine the master. In the eyes of the colonial powers and his political opponents, perhaps his only failure was in his light rising too early and perhaps shining a little too brightly. On the 30th of June 2022, Juliana Lumumba was at last granted her wish, and her hero was no longer without a grave. Rest in peace, Patrice Emery Lumumba. Your Excellency, we remember you. If you liked this podcast, then stay on this listening platform and check out my other podcast episodes related to this one, such as Wind of Change, Expanded, and Zanu and Zapu, Contrasts and Similarities from Season 1. War Crimes Part 2, Ashanti, War of the Golden Stool, and Long to Reign Over Us, the main act from the second season. And finally, don't forget what I call the heart and soul of the Stories to be Told movement. My stories, or poetic narratives, Caribbean Wind, Caribbean Rush, Knights at the Round Table, the Berlin Conference, 1884, referenced in this podcast, and Gone with the Wind, Macmillan's Speech for Change, are all available on the website in both ebook and Kindle and paperback formats. I'm also really excited about the publication of 4 new titles this summer. If you want to find out more, just visit storiestobetold.com and check out the learning platforms for The Journey's End, Giving Back Hong Kong, Bite from the Big Apple, A Story for New York, Hope for Zimbabwe, Arise the Phoenix, and A Story for South Africa. The paperbacks for each title are live on Amazon, and you can pre-order a Kindle copy, which will be available from the 29th of July. I'll be tidying and refreshing things up so that the new titles will also be available to purchase on the website. And don't forget to enter the draw for a free copy of Aspiring Authors magazine for Black History 2022. If you want to be in with a chance of being my winner for the month of July, just visit the website and register for your free samples of my first 4 titles to enter. I'll be choosing a winner every month up to and including October. Feel free to like, follow and share me on social media when you visit the website as well. Just click on whichever social media link you'd like to follow me on. And as always, it is a pleasure and a privilege to share my learning journey with you in this podcast series, and I encourage you to either begin or continue your own. History is a matter of fact or perspective. I'm Tracy DW, and this is a Stories to be Told podcast. Stay safe, stay well, stay blessed. Thanks so much for listening again, and I'll see you on the next page.